Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to start a reading vlog. I'm not quite sure whether I will actually read all 3 books that I'm currently planning for this vlog, because sometimes 3 is just too much for me. But I always think that 3 is a nice number for a vlog, you know? But I thought we're gonna do a cutesy witchy vlog. So these books that I want to read are more on the romantic side of things. So they're not scary witchy books. They're romances or slight mysteries, but they have this touch of the magical and they're not scary. So we'll see if this is actually true for all of the 3 books I plan on reading on this, because with one I'm not so sure. When I first heard about it, I thought it would be a scary book, but now it seems to have gotten a little bit of a rebranding and looks more cutesy. We'll see. But the 2 books I will for sure read. The first one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandanna. And this one I'm very, very excited about because I have heard it compared to The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is a book I really enjoyed. So if it has these kind of cutesy vibes, a little bit of romance and a little bit of magic, I'll be so happy. So yeah, I'm definitely very, very intrigued to read this book. Basically, we're following a young witch who belongs to this kind of society. It's not really a coven, they don't call each other anything, but in her head she calls them the Very Secret Society of Witches. And basically they meet once a year or something like that, and then they don't talk to each other, they don't see each other, because it is too dangerous, they might be discovered. But one day this young witch gets the offer to become kind of the tutor, the witchy tutor, to 3 young witches who live in a house that is very far away from everything. I think in Norfolk, I'm not quite sure. UK geography is not my strong suit, but yeah, it sounds great and I'm very, very intrigued to read this. Then the second book I will for sure pick up for this is From Bad to Cursed. This is the second book to Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. I read the first book, Payback's a Witch, last year and really enjoyed it. I was actually very much surprised how much I liked it. This is a romance series that is focusing on witches, and we have this small town with I think 4 magical families, and they all have their different specialities. In the first book we follow a character who has to go back to this place, and there's kind of this this grudge between her and her ex and stuff like that. And in this second book, I think we follow the sister of the love interest from the first book or something like that. We do focus more on the family of the love interest from the first book, which I found to be the most intriguing, to be honest, of all these families. So we'll see. I think this is more of a enemies to lovers story, so I'm very much intrigued to see whether it can live up to the first book. The first book was also sapphic. I think this one is not. I think this is a traditional heterosexual romance, but I'm not sure about that. So we'll see. And then the third book I thought about reading is Cackle. And as I said, this one seemed to be more on the scary side when I first heard about it, but now it doesn't look like that anymore. The cover is more cutesy now and all of that. So we'll see whether I get to that one. It depends on how fast I'll be able to read these books, because I know that at the end of November I will go into my phase of holiday romances. And so yeah, we'll see how far we can get with this witchy vlog, but that's what I'm in the mood for right now, and I hope you're too. So it's time for a quick update, because I am now 50% through my audiobook, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and I'm really, really enjoying the book. It is so much fun. It is also very, very cutesy, and I think the main theme that it deals with is being lonely and just recognizing that you have been lonely for a long time, but there might be a place where you fit in and where you can feel at home. And I think that is a theme that we can yeah, all kind of relate to. I think because of the pandemic, but also because of other things. The last couple of years have been very lonely for a lot of people, so it's just nice to see this character who could never really belong anywhere because of her big secret that she's a witch, finally fitting into this household and just having a place there, being a part of everything. So I think it's really wholesome and really cute. I do think that the one child, Terracotta, is a little bit annoying. I'm not the biggest fan of children, and yeah, she needs to come around, let's be real. But right at the point where I stopped listening yesterday, which is pretty much the halfway point, I'm like almost exactly 5 hours into the book, there was a pretty dramatic scene. Something happened, something that might be dangerous, we'll see, but I think this will kind of be a turning point as well for the relationships of these characters. And I do really enjoy the romance. It's definitely a grumpy sunshine romance, and the love interest character, for one, has an Irish accent, so that's a win for me. And second of all, he has some kind of a backstory that we don't know yet, so I'm intrigued to see yeah, what that will be, because I think we will figure it out at some point in the book. But yeah, I think it just is the perfect mixture of like cozy, fun vibes, lovable characters, and it's just a good time. So that's what I was here for, and I'm getting exactly what I wanted. So I'm very intrigued to see where the book goes from here. As I said, just something quite dramatic happened, so it will be interesting to see how it progresses now. And yeah, I'll keep you updated on that one. So it is time for an update, because yesterday I finished the very secret society of Irregular Witches, and I can only say that I ended up really enjoying this book. I think it's one of my favorite romances that I have read. I decided to give it 4.5 stars. It was really fun, it was so cozy and cute, and it was just exactly what I wanted. So I'm very happy that this did not disappoint. Now, why did I only give it 4.5 stars? I think I always have a little bit of a hard time with romances, just because I don't really see like the bigger merit of them. It's not like they spark like really deep thoughts or anything like that, any deep feelings within me. So I think that's why I just can't really give them 5 stars that easily. I think that the whole messaging in this book was really good as well. It deals a lot with like loneliness and finding strength in numbers and just trusting people, finding love, and finding the courage to let others love you. So that was actually quite nice, and I think something that fits the times, you know. I think we're all looking for some more connection and some more togetherness, and so this book just really hit that mark. The characters were really lovely as well. We have this like whole cast of like super cozy, super kind people who come together in this house, and especially with the main character, I just really enjoyed her. It was like the kind of main character that I generally like reading about. She is quite lonely, but she is a kind person, and she's looking just for a place to call home. She has a little bit of a difficult past, but I also really liked how it wrapped up with her adoptive mother, and yeah, it was just all around pretty wholesome. I also really enjoyed the romance because there wasn't like a lot of like back and forth. There is a little bit of that, but it's definitely understandable. And what I like about these fantasy romances in particular is that you don't need like a made up reason why the ending is a little bit more tumultuous, because you have fantasy elements and you can throw them in there. So that's what I really enjoyed about this. The ending definitely had some twists that I did not see coming, and it was just really fun to be shocked along with the characters a little bit. And I think with you know, traditional romances that don't have these like little magical elements, it's a lot harder to do this kind of thing. But because you have the magic, you have some fun with it. And I really, really like that about the book as well. And as I said, just the whole vibe of this was so wholesome and cozy. It fits the season perfectly. The book actually ends on Christmas. So I think if you are planning to pick it up, now would be the perfect time for it, because you have this like very nice Christmassy ending. It's not like there is a lot of like Christmas content in there, but just knowing that, you know, it ends with this celebration that a lot of, you know, we Western people have. It was just really nice. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't really know what else to say. But like overall, I just really, really loved it. I loved the ending and it was such good fun. So I think I'm already pretty sure that this will be my favorite book out of this bunch. I don't think that the other two books will actually come close, which is kind of sad, but we're just gonna ignore it and we'll see, maybe I'm wrong. One more thing I wanted to say about the Irregular Witches is that there is kind of a sex scene towards the end of the book. Now, I don't usually read smut, so I don't know the terms. But basically, I think this one is not very explicit. We almost only see the foreplay, and then with the like penetration part, it fades to black, basically. So it's not that graphic. So if you don't enjoy graphic sex scenes, I don't think you will mind this one. But I just wanted to mention it because like whenever I go into romances, I'm not quite sure how explicit it's gonna be. I usually do prefer ones where it's more fade to black, just because I'm like I'm like blushing too hard when it gets too sexual, to be honest. I have now started From Bad to Cursed by Lana Harper. In this book, we are following a girl called Issa. She is a demon summoner and she has some like necromancy magic. And she lives in this like very quaint, very cozy town. And they're preparing for a spring festival. So already I'm a little bit disappointed because this is set in spring and not autumn. But yeah, they're preparing for this festival, and I think this is more of a like hate to love thing with her like nemesis. But as I said, because this has some magical elements to it, I always feel like these over the top things work a little bit better for me. Like this would not work for me if it was like a normal setting, like everyday life. But because there are witches and stuff, I feel like they can have an arch nemesis. It's okay. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how I like this book. What I do like about this series is that it is very very gender inclusive and very LGBTQ friendly in the writing style. The first book was a female-female romance, so that was some aspect of it that I really enjoyed. In this one, I think it is a female-male romance, but there was already a scene with a demon, and instead of saying it looked like a woman, it said the demon was femme presenting. Sorry, sometimes these words are just so hard on my mind. So I really enjoyed that, you know, just these like little things because, yeah, why not? So we'll see how that goes. I haven't really started it yet. Just got my toes tipped into it a little bit, but I'll keep you updated on that one. So I know I don't look so hot right now, but I'm now 50% through From Bad to Cursed, and I thought I'd give you a quick update because I won't really have time to do it later because yeah, I'll be traveling starting tomorrow, and so I will probably listen to a lot of my audiobook then. I'm actually flying through this one just because I'm on the train so much, and I just had a train ride that was like really, really full, so there were no open seats, so audiobook was the way to go with that. And that's why I'm already at the halfway point. I am enjoying it, but I must say that it is not as good as the Irregular Witches. It is definitely fun, and I do like about this series that the books are quite plotty. So with the first one, we have that whole magical tournament thing, and now with this one, we have kind of a mystery setup. So there has been some sort of a magical crime, and our characters are investigating that crime. So we definitely have a lot of plot that is pulling us along through the story. This one, is supposed to be a little bit like a hate to love, but I don't know. I always find these stories a little bit unconvincing. We do get the backstory why the characters might hate each other, at least from one perspective, quite early, because the female character is telling it to her sister, but we don't really know the perspective of the male character yet. So I suppose that will play a role at some point. We'll see. And yeah, it is understandable why there are hard feelings. But yeah, so now they have to do this investigation and obviously spend a lot of time together. And some of the banter is quite funny, to be honest. But it's just, I don't know. I just have a hard time with these kind of stories. I think I prefer stories where people just get to know each other and fall in love. So I'm already having a little bit more of a hard time believing what's happening there. We also get a more spicy scene quite early on in the book, like before the halfway point, which I thought was an interesting choice. And so now we have the whole conflict bit where, you know, something has happened, something physical has happened, but now the characters are like, oh my god, how could I with that person, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how I feel about that. But we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I think I will enjoy the plot at least. We'll see whether the idea that I have right now, how that crime happened, is actually the solution. But yeah, I'm having fun, but it's definitely not going to be a new favorite book, unfortunately. And I think that the main character is okay, but not a character that I'm in love with. And the male love interest is also fine, but I don't know. It's just not the type of love interest that I swoon over, I would say. I do like a very specific kind of love interest, and he's just not that, which is okay. You know, you don't have to find every person attractive or like super hot or whatever. One thing I really enjoyed is that there is this scene where they talk about the what's it called? Their star signs. Oh, English is so hard. Whatever, the horoscope stuff. And our main character is like really good at knowing what kind of sign people are, and then the love interest is trying to guess her sign. And I'm intrigued to see whether we will get the solution, whether we will actually ever know what her sign is. But I have a strong suspicion that is based on nothing at all. So if I'm right with that one as well, I will be very proud of myself, even though I know nothing about these kind of things. So yeah, I will definitely keep listening to it, and I think I will have just fun with it. And it's something that is quite nice to just have on, you know, in situations like a very full train of people. But yeah, as I said, it's just not a new favorite, and I think it will not be as good as the first book for me personally. Hello, so it is time to give you my final update on From Bad to Cursed by Lana Harper. I have just finished it. It is snowing now, which is really weird because you would think this is not the adequate weather for witchy books anymore, but it will be over tomorrow again, so I think I can deal with it because I have one more book I want to read. But for this book, I must say I am disappointed. I really enjoyed the first book last year, and this one just doesn't hold up. This one follows a different girl from a different family. So we're basically looking at the sister of the love interest of the first book, and they just have a very different dynamic. And I just really love the like cozy fall vibes of the first book. And in this one, we have more of like the necromancer family, and it is also spring, so the vibes are very different already. But I didn't really mind that too much. But then with this one, also we don't have this like magical tournament setting, which was like very fantasy-esque in the first book. But in this one, we more have a mystery because there's kind of a crime committed, and our main character and the love interest are trying to figure out what's going on. Now, I felt like the solution for what's going on is very, very obvious from very early on. So that was kind of sad because it just feels like the characters are stumbling around a little bit while you have already figured out what's happening. And that's always not so great for a mystery. So already this book did disappoint me a little bit in the plot line. But I also wasn't really down for the couple, and the main reason for that is the love interest. So we have a Rowan who already played a big role in the first book, and I actually thought he was kind of okay in the first book, but he was never really in the spotlight. And now with this book, he's so corny, and yeah, I just couldn't deal with that. At the end, they actually acknowledge it, like they actually talk about him like enjoying corny things, and that's fine. It's just that this whole book is just no. The romance just did not work for me. And the worst part is when they're like, you know, making out, and it is getting a little bit steamy, and he is touching her between her legs and says, "There you are." And that is like that. Everything was over for me at this point. Like, I was like, no, you did not say that. How? Why would you say that? Like, no. That was horrible. And at the first couple of things where it's still more like enemies to like attraction, those were some nice steamy scenes, but also their first more steamy encounter is when they're intoxicated. So that's also something that I don't love, to be honest. But it still had like the attraction. I think the attraction was written really, really well. But then the further it got and the more they were just traditionally attracted to each other, the less I cared about it. And actually the sex scene that happens didn't do anything for me because that was after the "there you are" point. And I could not. So that was kind of sad. So the romance fell flat for me, and also the plot part fell flat for me. So I think overall this is going to be a 3-star read. I don't think that it is a bad book, but compared to the first one, it's just a whole different game. And it's very sad. I also feel like this book was steamier than the first book, and I don't know. That wasn't for me. As I said, if you don't care about the couple so much, then just, yeah, it won't get better from there. So, yeah, I was a bit disappointed with this one. It's definitely steamier also than the Very Secret Society of Witches. You definitely have one sex scene that is described, and 2 other scenes, I think, that get quite steamy as well. So if you're into that, you will get a little bit more of that in this book. But as I said, just the couple did not work for me, and especially the love interest. So yeah, we'll see. I'm not quite sure whether I will try the 3rd book that is coming out next year, because there's already a little bit of confusion or like a criticism, because the love interest, I think, in the next book is gonna be non-binary, but this character is still referred to as he throughout the whole book. So this character uses he, they pronouns, but then only he is used, I guess. So not sure how I feel about that. And there were some other things, like there was some discussion of racism in this book now, in the second one, because the love interest is black. So that was also something where I felt like it was just painted with a little bit too big of a brush. I don't know. It just felt unauthentic to me. It just felt like a little bit overdone, like, oh, the love interest is black, so we have to discuss racism now. It just didn't feel like authentic in that way, not like it had a real place and it fit the characters so well. I don't know, maybe that's just my interpretation, but I didn't think that that was executed quite well. Even though the discussion itself was like, okay, like there was nothing like racist said or anything like that, but just the way they discussed it felt a little bit over the top to me. So yeah, unfortunately, this one was a disappointment. I do have to add something from bad to cursed, and that is that when the two characters actually have sex, it is without a condom. And it is consensual, but I still felt a little bit icky about it. So just wanted to throw that out there if that is something that is triggering. But now we will move on to the last book for this vlog, and that is Cackle. Now with this book, I actually have no idea what to expect. I have had it on my wish list since it was announced, so quite a while now. At first, it was sold as a horror, but then people said it is a thriller, and now it seems like lots of people are saying it is not a thriller and not a horror, but I think it's also not a romance. So I'm quite interested to see what to expect here, because I'm a little bit confused on where this is gonna fall. But for now, I just listened to the first couple of minutes. We're following a main character who has just broken up with her boyfriend, or the boyfriend has broken up with her. She has just celebrated her 30th birthday, and she's moving from New York City to a small town to teach there, I think. And she doesn't really know what's gonna happen with her life. She's like very unsatisfied. She doesn't want to be single. And she just feels like her life is failing right now. And then I think when she moves, she will meet like a very enigmatic person who is a witch, maybe. So we'll see about that. I'm very intrigued, and I will definitely let you know what I think when I've reached the halfway point. Hello, it is time for an update because I'm now halfway through Cackle, and this book is interesting. Now, I didn't really know what to expect from it when I started it, and so far it's not what I expected. I have to keep the camera nice. So yeah, I told you that in this book we're following a young woman. She just turned 30. She's not really happy with her life, and she's moving to this small town where she meets this very, very gorgeous, amazing woman who wants to be her friend. And from the whole setup, you already know what's the deal with the friend. So I was pleasantly surprised that our main character gets confirmation of her suspicions quite early, around the 40% mark. So it's not like we know something the character doesn't know and then we're following her for the whole book. So I thought that was very, very interesting, a good choice. And yeah, so now we have this weird friendship, and I'm still not quite sure where it's gonna go. So there were some quite disturbing scenes, especially if you don't like spiders. But it's definitely not a horror. It has some slight gory scenes, I would say, and it has some ghosts, but it's just a minor part of the story. So I'm not quite sure where it's gonna go in the second half, because right now it's mainly just a weird female friendship between a very insecure woman and a witch. So I'm not quite sure whether that will work out for our main character or not. I do think that it's quite interesting how the friend Sophie is portrayed. She's definitely manipulative, and the main character doesn't really see it. And there is quite a few scenes where our main character is just like, well, okay, and we can still be friends. And as a reader, I was like, can you though? Like, it is a little bit of an interesting power dynamic going on there. And you can definitely see that our main character maybe is just a little bit desperate to have a best friend. So she takes up with a lot, to be honest. It almost has some Twilight vibes. So there is this scene where our main character notices that there is something like a little plant hung above the front door of her apartment. And so when she finds out all about her new friend, she's like, well, just a question, like, did you put that there in the middle of the night when we weren't even friends yet? And the witch is just like, yeah, I did that. Like, wasn't that weird? And that gave me some major Twilight flashbacks. But yeah, it is kind of fun because it's so different from what I thought it would be, and I didn't even really know what to think it would be. So that's definitely something. It is interesting because I really don't know where it's gonna go. Like, is this just gonna be a funny kind of like women's fiction book but with a witch? Or is there gonna be something sinister now for the second half? It could go in either direction, and yeah. This book also discusses a lot the question of whether you can be happy when you're single, because our main character does not believe that. She has been in a relationship for quite a long time, and she also tells us that before that she basically always had a boyfriend, and that she actually lost a lot of her friends because she was always so obsessed with her boyfriends. So that's something I think is very interesting, because I definitely know people that are a little bit like that, or I knew them in school, for example. So I think that is an interesting topic to discuss, especially since the friend character Sophie, she is very different. She does not want romantic relationships, so you could say she's aro ace, I guess. And she is very much of the mind that you can basically only be happy when you're single. So it's an interesting setup, but then I feel a little bit iffy with her being the witch character, because yeah, it's just such a cliche, you know, and I do kind of understand where she's coming from with like probably haven't seen some shit with men because she's lived for so long. But also I think, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it feels a little bit iffy to me in some moments, because like being a heartless witch is one of those stereotypes you get faced with when you're a woman, you don't want a family. So I'm intrigued to see where this discussion will go in this book now. But so far, it is like kind of wobbly, just because you have this like very manipulative female friendship that one character is very desperate to have. And yeah, it could go well, it could go really wrong too. So I'll update you when I finish the book, and then we will come to the end of this vlog. Hey everyone, so I have an update. I finally finished Cackle by Rachel Harrison, and I decided to give it 4 stars. I had a lot of fun with this story, even though I had no idea where it was going. But in the end, I would say this is a coming of witch story, and it's also a feminist take on the whole witch concept. So if you're into that kind of thing, I think you will have some fun with this book. Do not expect horror and do not expect thriller. There is some slight triggering things in here, so as I said before, if you don't like spiders, just avoid this book. But there's also a kind of nasty trip because of some hallucinogenic tea, is that how you say it, that the main character goes on. So that could also be a little bit triggering, I guess. But mainly we are following a girl who got dumped by her boyfriend, and it's her journey to finding that maybe she doesn't need him. And I can only support this message. I really enjoyed this. I think the journey the main character goes on is quite a bumpy road, but I was having fun just going along with it. Because this was an audiobook, I did enjoy this more than if I would have it if it would have been an physical read, just because usually I like a little bit more substance to my physical books, but as an audiobook that you put on in the background while you do chores or something like that, this can be a very entertaining. So I would definitely recommend it if you're into this kind of thing. I think that the marketing for this book was slightly off just because it is an interesting mix of genres, but I would say it's mostly like women's fiction, even though I hate the term, but it is about women and about empowerment, about becoming your own person and realizing that you don't need anyone else. And that's basically what this book is all about. So yeah, it was fine. I think that the ending was a little bit too dramatic for my taste. I would have liked if the main character could have come around to the message a little bit earlier, and maybe we wouldn't have needed that whole scene at the end. But then it is a book and we do need a little bit of drama for the ending. So I totally get that, and yeah, I just had a fun time with it. And I think for an audiobook, that's basically what I expect. So if I would do a ranking of the books, then I would place From Bad to Cursed on third place, because that one I gave 3 stars, and I was actually kind of disappointed after really liking the first book in that series. Then on second place, I would have Cackle, because it was fun, and especially if you go in knowing that this is not a horror or a thriller, I think you will like it. And then on my first place is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches with 4.5 stars, which was just the most wholesome of them all, and I did enjoy the romance part of that a lot, and I just love the vibes. So that's definitely my favorite one. So if you're still looking for a witchy book to read, then I would highly recommend The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. That's also one that you can currently vote on for the Goodreads Choice Awards, but it has been miscategorized as fantasy, so I don't think it will win anything because it's not a good fantasy book, it's a good romance. So yeah, I hope you had fun with this video, I hope you liked it. Please leave a like or nice comment if you did, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!